Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. We didn't have a docket yesterday, so let's go ahead and open the record on today's docket. First, the perpetrator of the Jussie Smollett hate crime was sentenced yesterday. Good old boys in South Dakota doing what good old boys do. An update on the Daytona Beach murders. A Schreck hearing has been granted in the Barry Morphew case. I'll explain what that is. Murdaugh hiding assets? Who would have thought? And remember when I say let road rage incidents go, let it go? Let me give you an example. I'll show you Exhibit A. A real life time to kill. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day and a quick recap of our contestants throughout the week. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Yes, we did not have a video yesterday, so hopefully we'll have an extra great video today to make up for it. And you may say, Scott, why were you not here? Well, let's just say it was a busy day. We had clients getting arrested all over the state. And in one particular case, well, let's just say we were being harassed. First, they weren't going to allow us to appear via WebEx. Then it was going to be you had to be in person. And guess what? Only thing that matters is mission accomplishment. So even though I had multiple court appearances in Denver in the morning, we were able to get over to the Western Slope for a hearing that was originally set at 1 and then moved to 4 o'clock. Isn't that convenient? Yes, we had to borrow a friend's aircraft because the weather had been really, really crappy and couldn't get in or out of just about anywhere, but his jet was able to get us there. Mission accomplished. Before we get to the docket, please subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that little bell over there because you're supposed to get notifications when we go live or put up new content. But we have a lot of people saying, hey, I've hit the bell and I haven't been receiving my videos, my notices. Well, I think that's part of shadow banning because sometimes YouTube doesn't like what we say and then they kind of put us off into no man's land. I think those numbers are starting to come back up. Maybe I think we're done being shadow banned. But hey, after today, we'll probably be banned. All right, let's get to the docket. Friday, March 11th, 2022. The perpetrator of the heinous Jussie Smollett hate crime was sentenced yesterday. Yes, he was. As you may know, the former Empire actor, Jussie Smollett, was sentenced to 150 days in jail and 30 months of probation for falsely reporting to police that he was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack going back to 2019. Now, Mr. Smollett's new mugshot has been released, and he was ordered to pay $120,000 in restitution to the city of Chicago, as well as pay a $25,000 fine. And as you also may recall, Mr. Smollett told authorities back in 2019 that two men put a noose around his neck, splashed him with bleach, and called him racist and homophobic slurs. Upon further investigation, police concluded that Mr. Smollett had hired two brothers to fake the attack. Police said that at the time, Mr. Smollett planned the phony incident to further his career. That didn't go as planned, now did it? Now, Mr. Smollett was found guilty in December of 5 counts of felony disorderly conduct, and though jurors concluded he was not guilty of a 6th count of aggravated battery, Mr. Smollett will have to carry out his sentence at the Cook County Jail. Now, I've had a couple of clients over the years that have been arrested in Chicago, and I have a friend who was a public defender previously in Chicago. Apparently, the Cook County Jail is not a nice place to be, but that's what happens when you go to jail. You don't go to nice places. Now, because of the low-level, nonviolent nature of Mr. Smollett's crimes, he will not serve his time in state prison. It's basically a jail sentence as a condition of probation. The jail currently houses roughly 6,000 men awaiting trial. Now, several sections of the jail have enormous dormitories where hundreds of men sleep in bunk beds all lined up in a row. There are individualized cell blocks for more violent or at-risk offenders, And Judge James Lynn yesterday granted Smollett's day-for-day eligibility, which means if he behaves himself behind bars, he will likely be released within 75 days. Day-for-day credit. For every day that you follow the rules and play nice, guess what? You get a day of good time taken off your sentence. That's what that means. Now, as Mr. Smollett was led away in handcuffs, something worthy of an Academy Award, Mr. Smollett tore off his COVID mask and screamed that if anything happened to him in custody, it was at someone else's hand. He said that he is being unfairly punished because of his celebrity status and that anyone else would have been spared jail for the crimes from which he was convicted. Now, despite the jury's unanimous conviction of him lying, Mr. Smollett still maintains that he was telling the truth when he claimed to have been beaten up by the two alleged white Trump supporters back in January that turned out never existed. Now, I think the judge said it the best, and the judge's comments are very apropos for the circumstances. He basically said that Mr. Smollett is a liar. He lied, he kept lying, and that his time on the witness stand was nothing more than perjury. And that it was. So, Mr. Smollett, I'm glad that the real perpetrator of that terrible hate crime was sent to jail. Maybe they'll think twice about doing such a crime again. All right, next on the docket, good old boys in South Dakota doing what good old boys do. So, as you may recall, we talked about the case of the now currently serving Attorney General Jason Ravnsborg, who ran down and killed a pedestrian on the side of the road back in September of 2020. And it turned out that the deceased man's glasses were in the car because he basically came through the windshield. But Attorney General was basically given a loaner car by a state trooper that responded so that he could drive home, came back the next day with his chief of staff, and lo and behold, he may have sobered up. Although he said he didn't drink, he basically pled guilty to some minor misdemeanors. If that had been you or me, we probably would have been arrested at that time for vehicular assault or vehicular homicide. And really what it boils down to is he basically got off. Well, this week, the Department of Public Safety officer, Craig Price, revealed a text message sent from an unnamed politician to Mr. Ravnsborg less than 2 days after the fatal crash. The message read, well, at least the guy was a Democrat. Now, the family for the victim, Joe Beaver, said that while disturbing, the revelations about disparaging text messages does not come as a surprise. Now, thing that I'd like to know about, and I don't care which political party this is, why are we not naming the unnamed politician? Why are we just getting this information now, 2 years later? I still think that the Attorney General, Mr. Ravnsborg, should resign given his conduct. I think it's rather clear that he was untruthful. But we'll see how that plays out. As a politician, the only way you can be taken out of office really is one resigns or they're recalled or they're not reelected. And you can't really do much to them during that time period. What do they say? I think, that's right. Yeah. You get the government you deserve. So apparently that's what the people of South Dakota deserve. All right. Next on the docket, a quick update on the Daytona Beach murders. Now, authorities have arrested a man who allegedly stabbed a couple riding their bicycles home in Daytona Beach. The Orange County Sheriff's Office and the Daytona Beach Police Department announced they arrested Jean Robert McKean, 32. He's been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the killing of Terry and Brenda Altman. The couple was biking home from the Daytona Beach annual bike week when they were brutally stabbed by McKean. Of course, we give him the presumption of innocence. And it's alleged that Mr. McKean left them dead on the side of the road. Now, Daytona Beach Police Chief said that the murders were one of the most brutal he had seen in his 20-year police career. Because I think, I don't think it's a high crime district down there. But, certainly a double homicide can't be the worst he's ever seen. I could go to my office right now and see worse. Come on. Let's be realistic here, people. Heart goes out to the victims and their family. But the worst he's ever seen? Wow. lives like in Mayberry or something. Anyway, earlier this week, police released surveillance footage of the man who they say was the main suspect. And authorities said at a press conference Thursday night that McKeon traveled to Daytona Beach by bus, arrived Saturday. He allegedly returned to Orlando on Sunday. Mr. McKeon appeared at a court appearance this morning, but it's unclear if he was asked to enter a plea. Investigators still have no idea what the motive of the murders might have been. We'll keep you posted on that one. That's still not good. All right, Barry Morphew. They had a motions hearing. They continued motions hearing regarding discovery issues and everything the other day. The court has now added another motions hearing set for March 30th. And this is what they refer to as a Schreck hearing. You may say, Scott, what is a Schreck hearing? Well, a Schreck hearing is when one party, and in this particular case, the prosecution has endorsed expert witnesses. Well, according to case law, being Schreck, the court has to determine if the opinions and the evidence in which the opinions are based are really sound as it relates to scientific certainty. Because an expert witness has to testify, if it's a medical doctor, say, for example, within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, or some other specialty within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. Because we don't want junk science in court, okay? That's why, for example, lie detector tests are not admissible. Junk science. And just about anybody can come up with lots of expert issues. I once had an expert in a homicide case that was going to testify, and his training and experience was that he has been a hunter since he was like 6 years old. Well, he wasn't a pathologist, and really when they looked at our expert reports, they said, yeah, this guy's hunting experience doesn't really qualify him to be basically opining as to the angle of the bodies during the time of the shooting. So it is the job of the court to keep junk science out. The defense has said, hey, judge, what the prosecution is offering is junk science. It's not based upon credible scientific evidence, right? Science is something where you put out a theory, you test the hypothesis, and if it's right, you're able to recreate it over and over and over again because that's science, but it can still change based upon new information. Kind of like giving good legal advice, right? Depends on new information. Well, what that comes down to is the court's going to decide whether the experts, 4 of them, are going to be allowed to testify at the Barry Morphew trial. And the way things have been going for the prosecution, we never know, but they may not be coming in because if it is well settled scientific evidence, there's no need for a Schreck hearing. The court must be acknowledging by the fact that they're setting a Schreck hearing is that the evidence offered by the prosecution is somewhat dubious. All right. Alec Murdaugh, can you believe it? People think that he's hiding assets. So attorneys John T. Lay and Peter McCoy were appointed by a judge there in South Carolina to oversee Alex Murdaugh's finances after evidence emerged regarding the allegation that Mr. Murdaugh was hiding assets. Now, the attorneys have asked the judge to hold Mr. Murdaugh in contempt for violating the court order that froze his assets. Now, attorneys Lay and McCoy filed the motion after he signed away his rights to his wife's multi-million-dollar estate. This is in violation of the November 4th order from the judge in which Murdaugh is barred from transferring any of his assets, including inherited assets. Now, presumably, Alex Murdaugh had assistance to effectuate the disclaimer filed in Maggie Murdaugh's estate, as Alex Murdaugh is currently incarcerated. The receiver would like to assume that no lawyers were involved in assisting Alec Murdaugh in violating the court's order. Now, Lay and McCoy wrote in a footnote in their motion, they stated that they would like to assume that no lawyers were involved in assisting Mr. Alex Murdaugh in hiding those assets. Nice little jab. That's exactly what footnotes are there for. Okay, in legal writing, footnotes are stuff you're supposed to put maybe a little bit of information into, but usually people put in little jabs to the other side in those footnotes, and that's exactly what that was. Now, Murdaugh is being held at the Richland County Detention Center in South Carolina in lieu of a $7 million bond. He is the sole beneficiary of Maggie Murdaugh's estate, which includes the 1,700-plus acre property where she was killed along with their son, Paul, this past June. Now, Leigh McCoy contend that Alex Murdaugh signed away his rights to the estate with the belief that Buster Murdaugh's debts would be less than those of Alex Murdaugh, and thus the assets from Maggie's estate may be preserved for Buster Murdaugh in some portion. They call this an improper preference and say that it violates the terms and the intended purpose of the receivership order. Now, the receivers are continuing to investigate and learn more about the additional possible creditors. Suffice it to say, if the disclaimer is allowed to remain in place, such creditors may be left with little or no ability to collect alleged damages. That gets a little tricky. This comes up oftentimes in homicide cases, normally when the spouse allegedly kills another spouse and there's assets or properties and things like that, maybe children, you can disclaim any inheritance or something along those lines. And that just simply says, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm not sure it's necessarily intentionally a way of avoiding it. It's also could be a strategy for Alex Murdaugh saying, I don't want any of her estate because, well, that would make it look like maybe I had a motive to kill her. So something to think about there. All right. Remember when I say when it comes to road rage, let it go? Let it go? Let me give you an example why. So prosecutors announced that they will not charge the motorcyclist who followed a pregnant woman home after a road rage incident, and he allegedly, well, no, he did shoot her dead. Andrew Durr, he's 40 years old, will not face any charges after shooting Sarah Nicole Morales 5 times while waiting outside her home last November. The statement from the office of R.J. Larrizza, the state attorney for the Florida 7th Judicial Circuit, read, while the facts in this case are truly heartbreaking, the law does not authorize the filing of any criminal charges. Our sincerest thoughts and prayers go out to the Morales family. So what was it that led the prosecutor to decide they're not going to file charges? Well, let's take a look. So on November 20th, Morales was driving home to her 11-year-old daughter in Orange City, Florida, when she and Durr had a lane dispute. Durr, who was on a motorcycle, began to scream and kick Morales' car, according to witnesses. In response, Morales hit Durr's saddlebags with her car, causing him to almost crash. Well, Morales attempted to leave the scene after the hit and run, but Durr and another man followed her on their motorcycles. They attempted to block Morales in and call the authorities, but Morales was eventually able to basically get away and make it home. When Morales arrived home, where her young daughter was waiting for her inside, and then she retrieved a firearm. Durr and another man then pulled up in front of the home. Morales confronted the witness and Durr as they were on the phone with 911. Morales pointed a handgun at the witness and Durr. Durr, having a valid Florida concealed weapons permit, drew his concealed handgun and fired multiple times, striking Miss Morales. Miss Morales died shortly thereafter at the hospital. Miss Morales did not fire a single shot from the weapon she carried. The police were able to determine that. The gun actually belonged to her fiancé. She had called 911 on her drive home and informed an operator that she was being followed by a group of men who were making threats and intimidating her as they trailed her home. Durr was also on 911 while outside of Morales' home, and when the police arrived at the scene, they began to handcuff Durr. He started repeating, "That girl tried to kill me. She pointed a gun at me." Durr and Morales had no criminal records. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now, the motorcyclist, I get it. You're upset. You call the police. You get the license plate number, okay? Now, he had a weapon and a valid carried permit to carry concealed weapon. Okay, doesn't matter. Miss Morales goes home. She points the gun at somebody. You point guns at people, ladies and gentlemen, they're probably going to shoot back. And that's exactly why criminal charges were not filed. The motorcyclist, Mr. Durr, he kind of did everything right from the legal perspective. He didn't present the firearm until he had another firearm pointed at him. So, kind of a tragic situation indeed, but this is one of those situations where the law looks at it and said he was defending himself. Something to think about. Please go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to crimetalksearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched, and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, a real life time to kill. Now, who, by show of hands, has seen the movie A Time to Kill? It's based upon the book John Grisham, A Time to Kill. Great book, great movie. I think the book's a little better, but I got my opinions. You can have yours. Well, is this a real life time to kill? Let's take a look. A California man is accused of molesting the ex-UFC champion Cain Velasquez's 4-year-old son and allegedly molesting the boy dozens of times, as well as the possibility that he's molested other children. The criminal complaint alleges that a guy by the name of Harry Golarte, he's 43 years old now, 43, allegedly took the ex-UFC champion's son, who's 4 years old, into a bathroom and allegedly molested him. The child allegedly stated that Golarte ordered him not to tell anyone what had occurred and that it had occurred at least 100 times. The reported assault occurred at Golarte's mother's home daycare in San Martin, where Golarte also resides. The 4-year-old also told the police that he witnessed Golarte and other children going into the restroom. Now, Golarte has been charged with lewd and lascivious acts with a child under the age of 14. He was arraigned on February 25th and placed on supervised release pending the trial resolution of the case. 3 days later, Golarte was en route to get an electronic monitoring fitted when Velasquez allegedly chased him from his San Martin home through Morgan Hills before shooting at him in San Jose, reportedly near a school. Velasquez was arrested in San Jose. Now, Golarte's mother and stepfather were also in the vehicle at the time of the shooting. The stepfather was wounded in his arm and torso, but is expected to survive. Earlier reports identified the victim as a girl and a close relative of Velasquez. On Tuesday, Ryan Bader, who is Velasquez's longtime friend and former wrestling teammate at Arizona State University, identified the victim as Velasquez's 4-year-old son. Now, Velasquez was charged with attempted murder in connection with the February 28th shooting. He remains jailed without bond, and apparently GoFundMe has shut down the several accounts that were set up for his benefit because, well, I think GoFundMe is in a bunch of trouble because if it's not kind of politically correct, send money to somebody that needs a criminal defense. Anyway, how is this like A Time to Kill? Well, in Time to Kill, obviously the character there disposed of the people that were responsible for doing terrible things to his daughter, and he was put on trial. Now, it may work in the movies, but this is not going to be a time to kill type of defense in any way, other than the fact that if a jury says the guy deserves killing, then we should probably find him not guilty. However, vigilante justice, we can't have that in our criminal justice system. It's bad. Now, Mr. Velasquez made some big mistakes here. First of all, apparently doing with lots of witnesses around. That's bad. And he didn't accomplish what he intended to do, which is bad. So there's more witnesses there. And I'm not saying he should have done this, but if somebody was going to do it, he shouldn't do it in broad daylight. And maybe he just should have taken Mr. Velasquez for a nice long walk into the desert or something along those lines, because people die of dehydration out there all the time when they get lost and confused and don't know where to go. And I'm not saying anybody should do that, because that would be wrong. Okay? We're not tell anybody how to do anything. But in this particular case, Mr. Velasquez got it all wrong. And he's probably going to go to prison, if not for a long time, an extended period for sure. All right, next on the docket, our dumb criminal. Monday, Kenneth Clark, 64, walked fully naked up to his neighbor's front driveway, his porch actually, and then defecated on a glass table on the porch. Neighbors, classy bunch. Tuesday, Bianca Lockett left her infant daughter in an unlocked car while she went to gamble for nearly 2 hours. Bad mom for sure. Wednesday, police arrested John Burke, an executive at the Central Florida Council of the Boy Scouts of America, while wearing a Boy Scout uniform on a drunk driving charge. Burke was reportedly inside his Kia Soul, surrounded by numerous alcoholic beverages during the arrest in Florida. Thursday, no video. Scott was really busy. Today, a Maryland man and contractor, David Wilhelm, was at work when he reportedly suddenly became agitated with the property owner. Now, Wilhelm lives in a trailer behind the property, and he went inside to intentionally set a mattress on fire inside the trailer's bedroom. Now, the owner of the property called 911 and said Wilhelm returned to the residence he was working on and barricaded himself inside. He threatened to burn down the house and attempted to pour gas inside a third-floor bedroom. Several hours later, he surrendered and told police that he was having a bad day. He was charged with first-degree arson, first-degree malicious burning, arson, threats, and reckless endangerment. He was booked into the Washington County Detention Center without a bond. You know what, sir? We've all had bad days, but not yet, not ever, not that I could possibly think of, have I said, let me go burn down somebody else's property where they could be killed. Are you kidding me? That's not a bad day. You are just either a bad person or just dumb. I'm going with dumb because nobody wants to be judged based upon their acts at their lowest point. So we're going to go with dumb. Maybe you're not just a mean, malicious person. All right. It's one of those days, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see if YouTube shuts us down. But anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.